Good Mayir. Tonight's going to be Shvi Shal Pesach, the seventh day of Pesach, day of tremendous miracles, the day that we had Kriyas Yamsuf, the day we crossed the Yamsuf. The eighth day we're going to be reciting Yizkar this year individually, not with Minyan. And I would just like to share a thought as we enter the second days of Pesach, maybe give ourselves a little bit of chizuk. There's a story told over by the daughter of the current Amshin of a Rebbe. She says that the Rebbe one Pesach night didn't come home until 1 a.m. And the Amshin of a Rebbe's family and guests had been waiting, but as is well known in Amshin of, time doesn't matter. They're waiting, finally comes home at 1 a.m. The Rebbe finally shows up, they gather around the table, he picks up the becher and he starts shuckling for 20 minutes. Back and forth, just shuckling. 20 minutes. And his young daughter's going out of her mind. What's going on? She wants to start the Pesach Seder. Finally, he makes Kiddush and they drink the first cup of the Daled Kaisos. At some point, the Rebbe steps away from the table and his young daughter follows him out of their room. And when they're alone, she says, listen, that was nuts. This that you come home at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm already used to that. But what in the world were you doing for 20 minutes? That was crazy. And the Rebbe tells his daughter, he says, let me explain. I'm a Bechor, I'm a firstborn. And I choose to fast on Erev Pesach. Instead of joining in a Sudas Mitzvah and breaking the fast, I fast every Erev Pesach. I came home at 1 o'clock and I was totally parched and desperate for a drink. I picked up the Kiddush cup and it took me 20 minutes of kavana, of focus, to turn that cup of wine into a cup of Kiddush. I had to turn my personal feelings into a vehicle of holiness. And there are so many times in our lives where we need to do this. There's something very unique about Yizkar as well. There's a Hasidic teaching which explains that after a person dies, every time that a mourner recites the Yizkar prayer, it's like the mourner is holding on to the end of a rope. And this rope stretches all the way up to Shemayim, where the comforting presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu grips the other end tightly. And we might have all sorts of reactions. Sometimes our loss completely overwhelms us. We drop our end of the rope. Sometimes there could be anger, sorrow. Sometimes we'll release and sometimes we'll grab on even tighter. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu never lets go of his end of the rope in Shemayim. And Yizkar is really our comfort. It's for us. It's to comfort us. And interestingly, the Sfarim say that this is why the tefillah of Yizkar is said on a Yom Tov, which is a time when our loss is so closely felt. We're not with that loved one anymore as we used to be. And Yizkar is meant as a comfort. So these are personal feelings that we have when we recite Yizkar. How do we turn those personal feelings into holiness? How do we make this feeling of wine, so to speak, into Kiddush? How are we Mekadosh it? So I'd like to share a story that I came across a while back. I don't recall where it's from, probably from Rabbi Pesach Kron. That's where a lot of good stories are from, but I can't say for sure. About a Rabbi Kowalski, who I believe is the great uncle of Rabbi Kowalski, who we have here in St. Louis. This Rabbi Kowalski had been davening for the Amud for 10 months while he was a Chiyuv, while he was in his year of Avelus. Davened, didn't miss a minyan. Shachris Mincha Mariv, did not miss a single davening. And he would regularly daven in a minyan factory where there was a line of Avelim, there was a line of mourners who would wait their turn for the next minyan to be the Baal Tefillah. One day there's a line waiting their turn to lead the davening, and Rabbi Kowalski notices an elderly gentleman standing near the exit, desperately looking for help. He needed an attendant, some assistance walking home. And people were walking by him, he would say something to them, and they would scurry off, and this elderly Yid would become very agitated. And there was something not regular about it. So Rabbi Kowalski walks over to the old man, and he says, what's happening? He explains he needs somebody to assist him in walking home. He says, I've been asking people if they have a few minutes, and everybody's busy. One guy's running to work, another person's running to do carpool. So Rabbi Kowalski looks at his watch, and he calculates he's got 10 minutes before it's his turn for the Yamud. Figures, ask the guy where his house is, figures 5 minutes there, 5 minutes back, he should be able to pull it off, no problem. So they begin walking, and this guy's taka slow, very slow. One toe behind the other, very difficult. He's trying to get, balance out his feelings over here. They finally reach the house. Rabbi Kowalski turns around to hurry back, and the guy says, this elderly Yid says, can you walk me up the front stoop of the house? Of course, he walks him up the front stoop. They reach the front door. The man says, I need help taking off my coat. Helps him take off his coat. He runs back. He misses davening. After 10 months of perfection on behalf of his father, he finally messed up. He missed minyan, and he felt terrible. It was killing him. That night, he falls asleep. He's very bothered. He conks out. And his father comes to him in a dream. And he tells him, I'm meichel every tefillah. I forgive every tefillah. I forgive every amud. As long as you do these kinds of mitzvahs. These acts of chasadim do far more for me in Shemayim than when you lead from the amud. This is how we connect with Shemayim. This year in particular, we're not going to have Yizkar in Shul. We're going to be alone. Why? Because we're quarantining, even though we're not sick. We're doing chesed with the world. We're doing chesed with our community. We're doing chesed with people. We shouldn't for a moment think that we're losing out on Yizkar. We're busy doing chesed. We're busy being there for our loved ones. This is the greatest way that we can connect with our loved ones that have passed on. And the greatest chesed that we can do for ourselves as well is to follow the advice that we're being told by the Rabbanim, follow the advice that we're being told by those in the medical field. And this should bring the greatest chus for us, so that this is finally the last time, if chas v'shalom, the Geula does not come in the next few hours, this should be the final time that we ever have to recite Yizkar, in the merit of the chesed, of the kindness that we're all doing. Have a wonderful, wonderful Yom Tif. It should be a lichtige Yom Tif. It should be a heilige Yom Tif. I miss everybody, and Be'ez Hashem, we'll be together very soon. Good Yom Tif.